Welcome to Prime Suspects, alongside Adam Bjorn and Prime Sports co-founder Joe Brennan Jr. I'm your host, Matt Landis. Adam, we'll kick it off with you this week, as always, on the topic of Scottie Scheffler cruising to the Open Championship this past weekend, adding the claret jug to the mantle alongside this year's PGA Championship and 2 wins at the Masters. Looking back at the Open, how was the action this past weekend for both Prime Sports and BetCris?
Yeah, Scheffler really knows how to ruin a good weekend of golf. I don't even know if I saw a ball struck on Sunday. I sort of saw the birdie on the first hole and just, zoned out a bit. Results were good. He was a big winner on top of the charts on the outright. So it was kind of just fighting out for matchups down below, the top 5s, the top 10s, and some of these, continental Europe ended up being a good result last minute. But all in all, for this time of year, volume was good, interest is good. Looking at the golf figures overall this year, it is the one sport that we are winning in Ohio, in New Jersey, in Arizona. Hopefully that continues in Kentucky. It was I think, one of 2 sports that we won across all states last year. So kind of holding us up and holding us together right now.
All right, so some promising traction for the books when it comes to all things golf. And Adam, sticking with Prime Sports and BetCris, a Twitter follower recently asked you how things were going with the books, to which you replied with a thoughtful answer referencing, quote, 4 or 5 key business decisions going on right now that will influence the likelihood of success when you evaluate after next year's World Cup. What insight can you share on this podcast into these key business decisions?
All right, put me on the spot, why don't you? No, I mean, for us, it's really looking at the cost of doing business. It's looking at the marketing aspects. We haven't done a lot of marketing up to these points in any of it. Even BetCris Arizona hasn't had a lot to date. It's really been just getting the pieces together, getting the technology in place, getting the trading together, and then sort of now working out, okay, where do we spend that marketing budget? Do we do it with Google and Apple on the apps? Do we go more, old school, go to golf courses and things like that in the different states? Bombarding national radio or TV doesn't seem like the go for us. We don't have the budget that Fan Kings have. So it's really sort of being more strategic now on what do we have, where do we go, how do we do it? We've really identified a handful of bettors that are getting really good info. So we're just sort of being able to trade on that info to be able to get the numbers where we want them. Having the traders not afraid to give away the arbs when need be to sort of balance the books in a low liquidity position that we generally have on a lot of these things. And then we're also just looking at, is there more states that we should be looking at? What are the market accesses costing the brands and the partners? Just, how do we sort of make this a slow but progressive and successful venture? A couple of conversations is, do we need to sort of go and look for outside investments, outside money to sort of boost up what we're trying to do? Strategic partnerships, affiliates, all those kind of things. Affiliates has never been a thing that I've liked, but I've always said if I was reincarnated, I would become an affiliate, back in late 90s, early 2000s, and I wouldn't be doing this. I'd be sitting on my own island somewhere, just, having someone feed me drinks and shrimp and lobsters coming out of the ocean fresh. But I've always said for the last few years, after the World Cup, we'll bring our heads up and sort of see where this has gotten to. I think now that we're in a position that it's tough, but we're surviving, would we rather be a sweeps or prediction right now? Sure. But we've chosen this pathway, and what do we need to do to make it successful? And we've got a football season, a World Cup, and a football season. So now we've taken that sort of August 1st, bring the head out of the sand, see where we're at, to more of a, mid-February, even maybe the end of March Madness 2027, to really know what this looks like. And once we sort of grab it by the throat and we've understood it a bit more, push it forward and see, is it realistic that something can survive outside of the top 3 or 4, or outside of owning many, many brick and mortars, or outside of owning a TV station brand, or outside of owning sport merchandise and trading cards? We don't know. We're sort of the only one really doing this outside of, Circa have a brick and mortar casino. So we are kind of out on our lonesome in trying to pursue this, and we'll see if it's a road paved with gold or thumbtacks.
And on that note, Joe, let's go ahead and pivot and bring you into the fold. Major League Baseball's All-Star break has come and gone, with the Home Run Derby going down to the wire, only to be outdone the next night by the game itself, being decided by a derby-like swing-off where Kyle Schwarber of your Phillies led the NL to victory. What did you think of this year's all-star production that we saw from MLB? And as we enter the proverbial second half, what are your top observations on how the season is unfolding?
Well, it's great to hear, the annual whining of the baseball traditionalists, people who keep their own scorecard and certain members of the media about like, oh, it's about the game. It's not about these skill contests and things like that. Look, the public likes it. Anything baseball can do to draw positive attention, new people to the game is great. And between Cal Raleigh bringing apparently his entire family out to pitch batting and catch batting practice to him. And by the way, when you have a home run derby winner whose nickname is the Big Dumper, I mean, God, that is some outstanding branding, isn't it, though? And he's a switch hitter. Guy's got yard power from both sides of the plate. It couldn't have come up with a better winner for that one, unless Kyle Schwarber had actually participated, which he saved his best for the next night when 3 pitches, 3 dingers, and he's MVP. Talk about easy work, huh? The only downside is, okay, you did find out that all the All-Star starters, they were long gone. They didn't even stick around for the end of the game. I think that's one thing that kind of screws baseball and the other sports is when they're maybe trying to be a little too convenient for their star players. They forget, hey, it's the one commitment that they have where they could be out there. If they had everybody on the field for that thing, the fans getting to see them, that would have been a much better thing for that presentation. But all in all, it's a good event between the skills contests, the way the game ended. I mean, especially because the game was kind of ho-hum, frankly. Up to that point, AL had to come back, even to press it to overtime, I guess, the sudden death overtime. But finding fun ways to get people interested in your game short of being the Savannah Bananas is good. And remember, baseball is a game that has a lot of participation when people are kids. And then because it's a slow-paced game, it's something that obviously it loses a big chunk of its audience as people mature, they go out to school, they get older, start families. But it's a game that people fall back in love with at a certain point in their life in pretty big numbers. I think I've even heard Adam wax a little poetic about it and how it's great to just be able to turn the game on. And then just the languid pace of it just really lends itself to summertime, to sitting back. It's the opposite of the kind of, rapid casual snacking that people do right now of the other sports, baseball. You can kind of get both. If you want to follow along online, just on social media, yeah, of course, you can see every dinger that's hit within 30 seconds of it going over the fence because everything gets chopped up and put up on social. But it's a great game to have in the background. In a lot of ways, baseball hasn't changed that much, its appeal from when it was a game that was on the radio. So just happy through and through to see what the league continues to do with it. If only Manfred and the others can keep from screwing the game up in other ways, it should do just fine.
And shifting gears from America's pastime to a return to America, crypto prediction market platform Polymarket is looking to return to the US in the near future through the $112 million acquisition of, and here comes the alphabet soup, CFTC licensed derivatives exchange QCX LLC, as reported by Ingame.com. Adam, if you are able to follow me there, we'll move on with the question now. Unlike Kalshi, Polymarket has a robust non-US business, giving it lots of global liquidity. It's also a crypto native platform, both of these factors giving it some advantages. So how do you see Polymarket performing in the US when it does return against the likes of Kalshi?
Well, when it comes to comparing to the likes of Kalshi, from what I understand, Polymarket's a much more well-known brand than what Kalshi is and has been around a lot longer. However, what does transitioning that robust non-US business to the US? I don't know, ask Betfair. They tried it once in New Jersey and it didn't work out too well. Kind of way I've said all along, as much as I like Alex and Sport Trade, whatnot, I don't really think that this country is going to be made for exchanges in that nature. Now, the prediction stuff, is it a little bit different than the exchanges? Yes, somewhat. Is it a little bit more, is it more about having the market makers to back this? Well, maybe in the US it's a little stronger than what it is elsewhere. On Betfair, you always had really good cricket volume because it was backed by a really big market. You had good soccer volume because, again, it was backed by a lot of bookmakers, horse racing, those things. But all that liquidity and that volume has dried up. Now, what are the backers and the market makers are going to do in the US? Are they going to have the funding? Are they going to have the support? Are they going to have the longevity, the sustainability to sort of see these things out over a long journey? I don't know. But right now they've been giving a road paved of gold or opportunities with little overheads and things like that. I think the one thing that we really do sort of miss at times is how much of exposure or risk is Kalshi actually taking? It may be zero. It may be something. I mean, back in the days and still Betfair, BetDAC, all these sort of exchanges, they put a lot of their own money up to put up the liquidity for these markets. I don't know what's happening like that on Kalshi or Polymarket, or is it investors in each of those that are doing a lot of that liquidity as well and the market making? So when it goes head to head, for me, Polymarket is a lot more well known than what Kalshi is globally again, I guess. So this is kind of the conversation of what does it mean when they come back to the US. We know a hell of a lot of Americans were betting on Polymarket last year when they were, during the election and whatnot. Has Kalshi sort of taken that over since then? I don't know. But all in all, it's just another vertical. I think they'll struggle to offer all the carnival type bets and the parlays and all those kind of things that a traditional sportsbook can. However, there's been a shit ton of liquidity and volume traded on those things. I was watching the British Open on the weekend and they expanded it to top 5, top 10 and things like that. If their numbers are right of what they show of those things being traded, and again, when you take those traded numbers, generally you have to cut them in half because there's a buyer and a seller, and like Betfair did for a long time, they like to fatten up that number by putting both sides of the, when you take a sports book and you do the volume, that's what the player's betting. With these exchanges, they like to put the player and the house money together to make it sort of look doubly enticing. So what are these numbers really? I don't know. Is there any oversight or reporting on these numbers? I don't know. So what does it mean towards going to the future of it? If they keep getting the road that they're being given right now, it'll always be there. It'll grow. Some people understand this better than others. But I found a hard time sitting there on the weekend looking at Kalshi markets, trying to calculate and convert, to what these percentages meant into real odds and things like that at times. And I've looked at these charts for a very long time. So, time will tell. But when it just goes head to head, I don't know who has the biggest bankroll either out of these two. Kalshi's made inroads over the last sort of 6 months, but I don't think there's anything holding Polymarket back to sort of running over the top of that. If my perception of where they both really stand is that Polymarket is bigger and will become just as well known, if not more well known, going forward.
And Joe, I find it fitting that Adam mentioned Alex Kane of Sportrade because this Polymarket announcement comes just days after Alex published an article in the Buy Low, Sell High Substack with a provocative claim that Robinhood has the highest margin in sports based on the cost structure of prediction markets under CFTC regulation when compared to sportsbooks in the state-by-state model. How do you interpret the unit economics of the two models as presented in the article? And what do you make of the assertion that prediction markets like Robinhood are ultimately more profitable than sportsbooks like FanDuel?
I'm going to go with the last question first and say it is way too early to tell. Okay, Kalshi's lucky they got this kind of bubble that they're in right now. Congratulations to them for finding it. But nobody free rides in America. Everybody pays taxes. Everybody pays costs. So the fact that they got into this thing and they're essentially a gray market with a regulated market imprimatur. And I say that because yes, they're currently permitted to do this under the CFTC, or not necessarily explicitly permitted to do it so much as CFTC is not going to stop them from doing it right now. But now you're going to have other companies move in. It's gone from one company, they're kind of a curiosity, to now, between DraftKings buying an exchange, you got Polymarket taking the fast track in by buying an exchange. By the way, who are the luckiest people on the planet right now? People who had shitty, no traction exchanges right now that are licensed with the CFTC, who have suddenly become the beachfront property of the gaming industry to be able to sell off to somebody who has the wherewithal to be able to really leverage that stuff. But as far as Alex made a couple of claims about it. Yeah, obviously it's cheaper right now to be running your operation if you're Polymarket, Kalshi, or Robinhood than if you're FanDuel, DraftKings, or Prime, or BetCris. But again, that's not likely to continue. I also wonder why Alex, I don't know. Alex seems to forget that right now he is currently one of us, not one of them. I get it. He's hoping to get there with those guys, but he's one of us. So his enthusiasm sometimes, I think, like Adam said, we like Alex. We like Sports Trade. I think it's a really good product. But currently, it's a square peg in a round hole in our current industry. So the fact that, yes, they have aspirations to do things in that market, in that prediction market, I think sometimes their enthusiasm, he's getting a little ahead of himself. But the other piece of this, and kind of go back to some of the stuff that Adam's talking about, is it's really fun looking at like their liquidity counter up there on Kalshi. But what I would really like to know is like, all right, what percentage of that is the money of their market maker, who's pretty substantial? Because they're putting liquidity on both sides of the marketplace right now. They're really going heavy and hard in that thing in Kalshi. And it's really interesting. Like now you got to think like, okay, well, who do I root for in this battle? Do I root for, Kalshi with not a particularly great intuitive brand name for marketing going forward and their massive, private equity fund that funds their operation as a market maker? Or do I look at Polymarket, which is funded by Peter Thiel, one of the tech lords of the earth here right now? Or do I put my oar in the water for DraftKings, who's going to be using Railbird as their way of being able to enter this marketplace? I do wonder if somebody's going to come along and actually be something more than a front for somebody else in this marketplace to participate and attack this market in a way and create the products that are going to be interesting. And Adam's right. I think they've got a ways to go before they make products that can be, interesting on an ongoing basis to the people who have been, the customers that have been created since PASPA was overturned, especially by the people who follow FanKings.
Well, from a national conversation to a state-specific conversation and Prime's July 28th launch in Kentucky, Adam, with that Kentucky launch less than a week away, what can you share about launch plans and how you and your team plan to get out the word about Prime's arrival in the Bluegrass State?
So I will say one thing that we are very poor at is marketing, and is launching and letting people know that we're there. It's just not in our specialty wheelhouse, but I think we have gotten better sort of early on this year as we sort of push these things out. Prime have brought some things to the table as well of getting some players in New Jersey and Ohio. For Kentucky, it's sort of going to be very quiet and peaceful in the beginning. Just want to get this thing up and live. It's been a very long time coming. For me, again, I'm waiting until Churchill Downs open up, or maybe it just takes me going to another track to start handing out free bets or some promos or something to get it done. We have a real competitor there with Circa, so Arbors are welcome, and hopefully they do the gambling gods good work there as well. Get to really see whether our numbers versus Circa are really, do they stand up against that as well? This is a long game for us. This is a long road for us. We're not going to blow our load in the first week or first month. We're going to sort of take our time of just chipping away and getting together what we can. It's going to be just a slow, arduous journey, and Kentucky's going to be no different. I definitely want to get down in there into the state. I want to check border towns because, again, this is supposedly a state that covers 8 other states around those border areas. So that's definitely something we need to look at, including a couple of states that don't have sports betting, from what I understand. Slow and easy wins the race. That's the goal here. So we'll get it open. I believe I can officially say it'll be about 1 p.m. Eastern time next Monday that it'll be turned on, and people are welcome to start trying to take our head off.
Well, marketing may be a challenge at times, but giving people a fair bet is squarely in your wheelhouse. So with that in mind, how would you describe your expectations for performance in Kentucky compared to other Prime and BetCris markets, including Ohio, New Jersey, and Arizona?
Honestly, no idea. No idea what Kentucky brings. This was purely a selfish play on my part to get this Churchill Downs market access where I can go hang out in the turf club and try and convert some horse punters into sports wagerers. New Jersey, we've clearly seen we have 1 or 2 real key players that we go to battle with, win big, lose big, know what they're doing, have significant advantages. It's been a lot of fun over the sort of course of the last few months on baseball. We do have our arbors that we believe we're doing very well out of in New Jersey. Ohio, still being a tough state, but we do know our favorite bridge jumper was back last week and helped us have a green week in Ohio. So we'll keep pursuing, players of that nature and try and make sure that he's taken care of and makes it an enjoyable journey during the football season for him. He got the best of us last year, so we hope to square that up this year and go 1-1 on football seasons. Arizona's sort of chipping away. We're seeing good action there. We've had good results. Not many players, really low volume, but we've really done nothing to sort of push that either, which is what we're starting to do coming into August. So what does Kentucky end up doing? I have no idea if Kentucky have reported numbers so I can have a gauge of how they're actually doing across the state. We just get open, take a bet, result the bet, pay the players as quickly as possible and hope that sort of builds from there. But I do plan to get back to the old retired horse farm, have another chat with Birdstone, see if we can find some players in that area as well and, have some fun with it.
And Joe, while you're no longer with Prime Sports, you are still, of course, a co-founder and a shareholder, so you have a vested interest in the book's success. Adam's personal passion points aside, in terms of his motivation to bond with Birdstone, where do you see the most opportunity for Prime in Kentucky?
Well, my personal passions count here too. Did you know that they make bourbon in Kentucky? I'm willing to go around to every holler, to every bar in every holler and have drinks with people in order to, let's just do this. Let's sell this retail. I think the big thing is there's no silver bullets in this business, right? Prime's got to be different, and it's got to sell itself on what it can be, not necessarily what it wants to be. And what it is it's a bookmaker. And the one thing about Kentucky, it's a state where there's still a lot of people who like a good gamble, okay? There's still, because of the racing industry, there's still pockets of money and people who like to play, they like to gamble, and they like to gamble at high levels, okay? Those are the people that you should be trying to reach. And, what's the best way to reach them? One-on-one, in person. I think Adam's onto something when he says, like, hey, look, I'm going to get out there. I'm going to go to the tracks. I'm going to talk to these people one-on-one. I'm going to meet. Like, that is the best way, I think, for Prime and for Betcris Arizona to make a difference in this marketplace. Don't try and be a smaller, shittier version of Fan Kings. You just can't do it. Looking for things like, oh, what are we going to do for paid search? And what are we going to do with like affiliate and things like that? I mean, yeah, those things can help as long as it doesn't cost too much for them to try to help you. But the thing that's going to help Prime and the thing that's going to help Betcris is getting in there and just showing like, hey, look, there's a better experience at this. I mean, you can look at industry after industry, okay? There is a real room in America for people who want high quality treatment, that want a luxury treatment. And so Prime and Betcris, they want high margin players. They want serious players. But those players, you got to treat them well. And I think that's really what it's going to come down to. And there's no, okay, well, what do? We'll send them all a bomber jacket with our logo on the back like DraftKings did. The thing gets worn once or twice, laughed at, and thrown in the bin or put up on eBay. I bet you could find 12 of them on there right now, right? But be what you can be. And Prime is a serious bookmaker. Betcris is a serious bookmaker. Adam is a serious bookmaker who's got a soft spot for horses. And I've seen him knock a drink back now and again. I think he's perfectly primed, no pun intended, to be able to go there and sell this on a retail basis. I am really interested to see if the person who's been mentioned in the past as being the potential first official bettor on Prime in Kentucky is still going to be that person, because I don't know if there's a better way of showing people the kind of book that Prime is going to be than that kind of person. So I'll leave that to Adam. I hope I just didn't step on his toes because the guy backed out or something like that. But it's that type of player that I think really helps and that Prime should be going for, because that's a customer that they can get, they can retain, they can defend, and they're not going to churn because they're going to appreciate not only the kind of action that they get, but the kind of treatment, the kind of service that they'll get from Prime.
Adam, I would bet that most of this audience can guess who Joe's referring to here. And with that, is there anything you can share about Prime's first customer to be in Kentucky?
No, I can't, because I completely fucking forgotten. I'd had the conversation like 2 years ago when I told him. But
So it's not
I've
him
already,
then.
don't worry, I've already sent a message. I'm on it. I'm trying to pull it off. Yes, we'll see what we can do.
All right, well, audience, stay tuned, and we'll report back next week once Prime is live in the Bluegrass State. For now, we will go ahead and wrap up. And as Prime prepares to pounce on opportunity in Kentucky, wherever you see opportunity in the sports betting space, thanks as always for tuning in, and we'll catch you next week. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Prime Suspects. Register for Prime Sports at primesports.com and download the Prime Sports app. You can follow us on Twitter at PrimeSuspects_, at Joe Brennan Jr., and at Adam Bjorn 2. You must be 21 or over to play on Prime Sports. Always bet responsibly and within your limits. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.